I mean, and yeah, and we're going to go have a conversation on your channel, Andrew, in a little bit where we're going to talk about our political party's a cult. And of course, you know, I mean, how I started with all of this is I was a Democrat for 20 years, was completely indoctrinated by my political ideology, and then had that kind of moment where I woke up and I was like, something's not right here. And that started me on my journey. So we can, you know, kind of pick that apart in a minute. But it seems as though, you know, people do have those moments where they kind of wake up and realize this might not be what I thought it was. This might not be the best thing for me. And Aaron, you grew up in Scientology. And so I guess, how did you come to that realization that things were not probably as they should be?
You know, my path out of Scientology wasn't one that had like a, oh no, this is all BS moment. It's almost like, so like what happened originally, I'll give you like the elevator pitch version here. My mom got kicked out for talking smack about David Miscavige. And then they came to me and basically said, well, you got to disconnect from your mom or you're out too. And so essentially I was like, I basically for 2 years just lied saying I disconnected from my mom when I really wasn't. And people kept sort of finding out that I wasn't. And after 2 years, they were kind of like, all right, this asshole's just going to keep lying to us. All right, you're out. And so then they go to my wife and they're like, okay, well, you have to divorce your husband or you're going to be out. And she's like, you know, we have 3 kids. Can I give you all the reasons why that's not going to work for me? And then they're like, okay, then you're out. And then they go to her parents and they say, you have to disconnect from your daughter and your 3 granddaughters or you're out. Okay. So in that sense, even though there was a moment when I started to question everything, that's not necessarily what led to me leaving Scientology. And I think more to answer your specific question though. So in 2009, in 2009, I would have been what, 29? Yeah, 29. A series of articles came out with a bunch of former Scientology managers, like executives, people who in Scientology are like celebrities, you know, it'd be like, you know, the Elon Musks of Scientology. That these people not only had left the Sea organization, not only had left Scientology, but were now speaking out about the abuses at international management. Well, that for me was like, hold up. Whoa. Like that for me was a major turning point. But that was more just about the organization itself, not the belief system or not the philosophy or whatever. It really wasn't even until years later that I started to go, oh, wait, maybe Scientology itself is bullshit. Maybe L. Ron Hubbard was bullshit. And coming to that realization was really a product of speaking with some of these former senior managers and learning more and more about it. And that's the elevator version.
I want to ask you more about that real quick because, you know, for people that have been watching my channel for a while, they kind of assume that I just like woke up and went to a Donald Trump rally and decided to leave the Democratic Party like in an instant. Whereas how it actually worked for me was I some crazy nonsense started happening in my knitting community. I was perturbed by it. I started watching all sorts of videos of people who disagreed with me. I was like, oh my God, I've been lied to. And it took over like 6 months for me to kind of work through the cognitive dissonance of you've been lied to your whole life. This is not what you think it is. And then you kind of have these moments, or at least I had these moments where you go back and forth where you're like, this is absolutely corrupt and I don't want to be a part of it. But then no, all my friends and family are a part of it. And I don't really want to leave everything I've ever known. And so it was for me a process to kind of work through leaving. And I don't even think I was in a position like you were, where I hadn't grown up in this and have it be all my friends, my family, everything I've ever known. Was it a long process for you to kind of work through the dissonance?
No.
You're more decisive than I am.
For me, working through the dissonance was actually very quick and very easy, but it was also completely separate from any concept of actually leaving the organization or getting expelled or expelled from Scientology, declared a suppressive person. Even when I was completely disabused of the truth of Scientology, I still had no interest in being declared a suppressive person or expelled, right? Like I didn't hold it against all my Scientologist friends and family that I no longer believed. Like it was them who would hold it against me. It wasn't me who was holding it against them. So it's not like I would wake up in the morning and go, I think this is all bullshit. I just wish I could get expelled today. I at that time, in that frame of mind, I had no desire or plans to ever be expelled. I was fine on just living under the radar, being a non-believer and continuing to exist in the Scientology ecosystem. You know, I worked for a Scientologist. My wife worked for a Scientologist. My kids went to a Scientology school. Their friends were Scientologists. All my friends were Scientologists. My wife's whole family Scientologists. There was nothing about losing my belief in Scientology that made me feel like, oh boy, I just really got to get myself expelled.
I can really relate to that because, you know, I grew up as a secular Jewish person, went to Hebrew school on Sundays. I had to learn Hebrew and all that stuff. And then, you know, we'd have to go to synagogue a couple times a year, right? But nobody believed in any of the stuff. Like, nobody in the synagogue, like, obviously there was some people, like, I didn't even know, but everyone I knew, they didn't believe in any of that Jewish stuff, but they were just there for the community. And it was very important that I was, like, sat next to my mum and that she didn't turn up, like, without someone there. And I started to feel that pressure as a 15-year-old of, like I don't want to come as, like, you know, window dressing, that's not the right word, but, like, as some sort of decorative feature for you to show the community, which was, you know, part of why I broke out of that sort of, that need to, but no one believed it, which I wonder if that begs the question, you know, and I think Erin and I are discussing this next week as well about NXIVM, because NXIVM was a cult that was very similar to Scientology in many, many ways, but didn't seem to have the religious side of it that Erin was saying he stopped believing in. But nonetheless, people were still going to NXIVM all the time. There wasn't even a belief system there, but the cult was so powerful it kept them there.
So was it like a social system? Was it social cohesion that kept them there?
Erin, what do you think?
Oh, for the NXIVM? Well, here's the thing. You're saying there wasn't a religious element, and that's true, but you could also say the same thing about Scientology in that they do not see L. Ron Hubbard as being a supreme being or a messiah or anything. And the way the people in NXIVM talk about and treat Keith Raniere is the same way Scientologists talk about and treat L. Ron Hubbard. Oh, he's just a man who's come up with these amazing ideas. And it's like, yes, but you think his opinion on everything is the ultimate and final truth, although they don't take the next step and explain, but why? Why have you jumped from believing something this guy said was good to believing everything this guy says is infallible? And I haven't heard anyone in the NXIVM, I'm only like halfway through the first season of The Vow, I haven't heard anybody give anything greater than just a superficial explanation for why was Keith Raniere supposed to be so special.
Isn't it fascinating, the people who become cult leaders? Because oftentimes there's nothing particular. Like, you need L. Ron Hubbard to look at him. To be honest, he's not much to look at. I would say the same thing of Keith Raniere. And it's like, what is it about these people that draws people in?
It is the utter confidence with which they say everything.
Right.
And it's almost hypnotic. It's funny you mentioned L. Ron Hubbard being nothing to look at. I'd probably been in Scientology for decades before I saw a moving, like a video of him where he's moving and saw like a non-touched up photo of him. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, oh shit. I remember going, fuck, that's our guy? God damn it.
I love that. But John Atack, another former Scientologist, I remember him saying to me that yeah, you couldn't be near Hubbard. Not that I think John ever met him, but you couldn't be near him because of the stink, because he didn't brush his teeth, didn't believe in toothpaste and stuff. His teeth rotted in his head basically, and getting near him was a horrible thing to smell.
Well, I've never heard Mike Rinder say it was that bad, but his teeth are pretty busted.
They were pretty busted. I've seen some of the, like, I think it was like the HBO documentary. I was like, oh, dude, like, come on.